Can you be my daddy for one night?" The word stopped him completely in his tracks. Robert Hayes froze on the snowy Chicago sidewalk. His leather briefcase slipped from his fingers and landed with a dull thud, scattering a little puff of snow. Behind him stood a little girl, maybe 7 years old, her blonde braids tied neatly with small white ribbons that had begun to fray at the edges. Her pink cotton dress was far too thin for December weather, and her small hands were red and raw from the biting cold. She clutched a worn teddy bear so tightly against her chest that the toy's fabric looked ready to tear. Robert turned around slowly, his 55-year-old heart pounding against his ribs as though trying to escape. In 30 long years of building his technology empire, he had walked into boardrooms full of hostile investors, stood under glaring lights facing reporters, and defended his company during crises that threatened to destroy it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this moment. "What did you say, sweetheart?" His voice came out softer, gentler than he had expected, carrying an unfamiliar tremor. The little girl looked up at him with the most serious pair of blue eyes he had ever seen. There was no fear in them, only hope, an innocence so raw it nearly shattered him. "My name is Sarah Smith," she said carefully, as if introducing herself to a teacher. "Today is Christmas Eve, and I do not have a daddy. Mommy is working at the hospital tonight, and Mrs. Williams, who usually watches me, had to go help her sick mother." Robert knelt down in the snow without caring that his expensive Italian suit was getting wet. His knees ached, but he ignored it. "Where do you live, Sarah?" She pointed across the street at a small brick apartment building. "Right there, apartment 2B. Mommy left me soup and told me to be good, but I got scared when the thunder started. I came outside looking for someone nice." Robert felt something crack inside his chest. This small, brave little girl had stepped into the freezing night, searching for kindness, and she had chosen him. His throat tightened as an old wound opened again. His own daughter would have been 28 years old now if she had lived. Cancer had taken her when she was only 5. 23 years had passed, but the memory still brought him to his knees. He could see her face even now, the way she used to run to him in the evenings, arms wide open. He had buried that pain beneath layers of work, wealth, and silence. Yet, tonight, one stranger's child had unearthed it in a single breath. "Sarah," he whispered, "do you know you shouldn't talk to strangers?" She nodded solemnly, holding her teddy closer. "Yes, but you have kind eyes like my grandpa had, and you look sad sometimes. Like me." Robert stood up slowly, brushing snow from his trousers. He glanced down at the shopping bags he'd been carrying. Bags stuffed with expensive gifts meant for business associates who barely knew him beyond the profit he generated. For the first time, the weight of those gifts felt empty. None of them mattered. "And what would a daddy do on Christmas Eve?" he asked gently. Sarah's face lit up, glowing brighter than the Christmas lights beginning to twinkle in the apartment windows nearby. "Well, he would make sure I eat my soup, and maybe read me a story, and help me put out cookies for Santa. Mommy works so hard. She falls asleep sometimes before she can." Robert's chest ached. Slowly, he picked up his briefcase again and extended his free hand toward her. His voice was firm but tender. "Would you show me where you live? I think we should call your mommy first." Together they crossed the street, Sarah's tiny hand warm in his large one. Inside her small, cozy apartment, Robert watched as Sarah carefully heated her soup on the stove. He dialed a hospital, and after several minutes of explaining who he was, he finally spoke to her mother, Jennifer Smith, a nurse working an exhausting night shift. She said yes. Robert told Sarah when he hung up, smiling, "Your mommy said I can stay until she gets home at 7 in the morning." The girl clapped her hands once, beaming. The evening unfolded like a scene from a life Robert had once dreamed but lost. He read her 3 storybooks, doing all the voices, which made her giggle until she spilled a little milk on the table. He helped her write a note to Santa in her crooked, careful handwriting. He listened while she talked about school, her friends, and how she wanted to be a teacher when she grew up, because teachers make kids feel smart even when they are scared. She curled up beside him on the couch while an old black and white Christmas movie played softly. Her small head rested against his shoulder, her teddy wedged between them. Within minutes, she was asleep, her breathing steady and peaceful. Robert sat there in the quiet apartment, barely moving. Something inside him shifted. For the first time in decades, he felt truly needed. Not for his money, not for his reputation, not for the power his name carried in corporate circles, but simply for being there, for his presence, for his kindness. When Jennifer returned at dawn, her hair slightly damp with melted snow and her face lined with exhaustion, she found them both asleep on the couch. Sarah was curled up safely in the protective circle of Robert's arms, her teddy nestled between them. Beside the couch sat a shopping bag, but not the one filled with meaningless corporate gifts. This one contained simple groceries, eggs, bread, oranges, and a carton of milk that Robert had quietly purchased while Sarah had been brushing her teeth before bed. He had wanted to make sure they would wake to a proper Christmas breakfast. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You gave her something I could never buy." Robert carefully shifted Sarah into her mother's waiting arms, his own heart heavier and lighter at the same time. He smiled softly. "She gave me something too. She reminded me what Christmas really means." When he finally stepped back into the snowy morning, the city waking slowly around him, Robert Hayes was not the same man who had walked down that sidewalk the night before. Sometimes, the greatest gifts come from the smallest hands, offered by the purest hearts.